Yes, we can hear and see.
And about communications, because they're a really common element of road safety, yet they're often done badly and not evaluated to find out we're not doing it well. So it's good to learn more about it. Let me start with something we know. Who invented the electric light? Now, when we ask that, the vast majority of people who have an answer say Thomas Edison. He's given the credit by the vast majority of people, including on the internet. But the truth is, he didn't invent it. 40 years before he was born, an English guy, Davy, invented something very similar, but he called it something really bad for promotion, a carbon arc lamp. That was subsequently improved by Swan, then independently improved by Edison. Swan's version was better, but Edison sued, failed in that lawsuit, then they worked together. But good promotion says, caused everyone to believe Edison did it. That's the power of promotion, and that was really my point. It is so powerful. I'm going to talk about communications in general, starting with getting rid of some harmful myths and assumptions we make about speeding and promotion, and then the nature of the road safety problem, which communications work or don't work, and a few communications tricks to improve. And I'm going to talk pretty quickly. There's a lot to cover. So we have a lot of wrong ideas and myths. So I've actually crossed them out so you don't look and go, oh, that's a good idea. Common sense does not inform us well in road safety communications. And in fact, that's how we often get it wrong. We often think, well, people are speeding, we have to fix the people. We shouldn't just think that. And lots of other talks in this webinar would have talked through about the road engineering solutions, vehicle technology solutions, etc. But improving people is part of it. Higher speeds are better for the economy. No, I hope others have talked about that. But that can actually be part of what we need to communicate. Speeding is only a problem if something else goes wrong. Well, often actually we depict speeding crashes in a way that gives that false assumption. A large amount of speeding is not deliberate. Well, actually, the vast majority of it is deliberate, and we can show that. High fear works better at changing behaviour. Weirdly, it doesn't. We have to change attitudes before we can change behaviour. Weirdly wrong as well. I'm going to cover those. Okay, speeding itself causes crashes. It's not just about speeding, then something else goes wrong. We may have insufficient time to stop or evade something. We're going too fast for a curve. And too high speed for the sight distance assumed by the road. So it's too late for others or for you when you see someone. And there's a good piece of research on that. So speeding, most speeding or lots of speeding is not deliberate. It is. This is a graph of speeds on approach to a speed camera and then departing a speed camera. What you can see is people are speeding. The speeds are way above the speed limit, the 80k mark there. At the speed camera and around the speed camera, they drop down, but they go straight back up afterwards. People are speeding deliberately and slowing down to avoid being caught. High fear works better, and the others I will come to later as we progress. Part of what's critical here is how do we measure success in campaigns or communications or messages? And really take some time. I'm going to give you a few seconds, but think about which of these would you consider success? People saw the campaign, they remember the campaign, they liked the campaign, the message was taken out, people are aware of the relevant risk, they report their changed behaviour, etc. These are all things used to measure the success of a campaign. Now, to me, the answer is none of those. None are a real measure of success of a campaign. And yet we continue to use them. They're not a bad idea to guide us in how to do a campaign, but they're not a measure of actual success. And this is what's critical, and we seem to forget when it comes to campaigns. Road safety is not improved unless that on-road behaviour is improved. So the real measures are, did the behaviour actually change? Not people said they changed very conveniently. Did it actually change? And we can find out. Seatbelt surveys, helmet surveys, speed surveys, we can find out if behaviours have changed and have the relevant crashes reduced. And those are the critical ways to find out. And for speeding, that means have speeds reduced. Is there less speeding? And have serious crashes reduced? I would not use speeding involved crashes because that is so poorly judged in our crash data. Use them all. It's a good guide because speeding is involved so often. The nature of the road safety problem. Well, first, road safety is a system problem. We need to fix the system. I'm sure you know about that. And then road safety, when you come to people, is a motivation problem. It's not a knowledge problem, which education would fix. It's not a skill problem, which skills training would fix. It's a motivation problem. And if we think about pretty much every country I've been in, and it's a lot, these are the main causes of serious crashes. Speeding, not wearing a seatbelt, not wearing a helmet, drink driving, fatigue, maybe distraction. And let's focus on speeding. People know it's illegal. They know what a speed zone sign means. It's not a knowledge problem. Therefore, it's not an education problem. It's not a skill problem to drive below 60 in a 60 zone. So it's not a skill problem. Speeding is a choice. I want to get there faster. It's fun. It's a motivated choice. So if we're going to change this behaviour, we need something which changes motivation. Now, there is this report, which I presume Blair's talked about. He's the key author to it. And but it gives us effective and ineffective for various things. And when you consider road safety as a motivation problem, these results are not so surprising. So public education or campaigns or promotion based on enforcement and penalty regimes are effective. Public education on their own are not effective. And because what motivates? So what does motivate? And most people think, well, the risk of dying. If I talk about the risk of dying or the risk of causing a serious crash and ending up in jail, that's going to motivate people. They're pretty important things. But weirdly, that doesn't motivate people, and I'll show you why. The risk of being caught by police does motivate people. And speeding in New South Wales, we educated people about the risk of crashes, the risk of causing a horrible crash, the risk of being debilitated. Speeding just continued. Then we said, no, we're going to start promoting more serious enforcement. We're going to use more cameras. At the camera sites, we've got an 89% reduction in deaths. So education on crashes didn't work. Enforcement did work. Same for seatbelt, same for drink driving. It's pervasive to road safety that this is what works. Why? Why? Common sense, again, misguides us to say, well, surely the risk of dying is more important than the risk of losing some money or losing your licence. So why isn't that the way it works? And the answer is a psychological principle called optimism bias, or particularly in the case of driving, driver overconfidence. People are really bad at judgment of risk. And we've done this study in Australia. It's been done in lots of countries, always gets the same result. If you ask people, are they much worse driver, average driver, better than average driver, much better driver than average driver. Sorry, much better than average driver. Most drivers say they're a average driver. Very few people think they're a worse than average driver. This is why crash risk doesn't motivate, because for most people who are overconfident, and they're the ones doing more speeding, they're thinking, great, glad you're telling all those other people that, but I'm a good driver, I can do this safely. So they don't listen to that. If you say, we don't care how good you think you are, we will catch you, we will fine you, you will lose your licence, that's motivating. That's why this works. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the real relationship between attitude change and behaviour change. Now, self-reported attitude change, and it's pretty hard to measure attitudes other ways, often does not result in behaviour change. People can say they've changed their attitude and they haven't done so. They'll keep doing what they were doing before. Behaviour change, on the other hand, weirdly, often does result in attitude change. So if we can use enforcement and force a change in behaviour, that will lead to an attitude change. And there's actually a lovely example of this. When we introduced random breath testing in New South Wales, after years and years of campaigning about educating people on crash risk, if you drink drive, you're more likely to die, you'll have a horrible crash, you'll kill someone, you'll end up in jail. Drink driving continued to be more than half the deaths. Continued to be 44% of the deaths in New South Wales. And yet, we then said, okay, we're not going to talk about crashes anymore. We're going to talk about random breath testing and the fact that we will catch you. When we did that, the deaths the drink drive deaths more than halved. So education on crash risk, no change. Promotion of good enforcement followed by enforcement, powerful change. The weird thing was that when we started the random breath testing, people's attitudes to the risk of drink driving also changed. People started to regard drink drivers, and we did surveys before and after to find out, started to regard drink driving more like being a criminal, a potential murderer, rather than being stupid or unlucky if you're caught. So we changed the behaviour, people changed their attitude. Why? It's this other very interesting psychological principle called cognitive dissonance, which really means an uncomfortable mental state. So if you have this attitude or this belief, but you're behaving in a way that's inconsistent with it, that's very uncomfortable. So people try to get those things to come together. If they feel they can't drink drive anymore, then what they do is they shift their attitude to match their behaviour. So they're not drink driving, so they decide drink driving is a bad thing to do. So we can actually change attitudes by changing behaviours. And that's a key part of how we succeed with long-term change through campaigns and enforcement in road safety. Now, when I say that, people often say, well, that's just enforcement. No, it's not. Because what we found was we campaigned a month in advance of random breath testing. Drink driving crash rates were already dramatically dropping before we even started the enforcement. So the campaign alone was already doing it. What's more, if we hadn't done that, people continue drink driving. They don't get caught very often. So they kind of keep doing it. So enforcement alone doesn't work as well, even long term. Whereas if you get people to change their behaviour and they stop drink driving, they don't get caught. They think, oh, that's because I stopped. So you reward the better behaviour instead of only punishing the bad behaviour. And that's why campaigns are so powerful in road safety. I'm going to conclude in this very brief talk. We know what works and what does not from the evidence, and we must follow that evidence, never our common sense. Psychology also shows us why certain processes and certain types of campaigns work and others do not. And we should apply those psychological principles. There are many more I didn't have time to show you, and I'd love to sometime. There is also a lot of psychology to be applied in communication to persuade senior decision makers and political leaders to do things that work better for road safety. It's another really exciting area of using psychology, but I will stop there and thank you all for your attention.
Okay, we hope you enjoyed this presentation. We thought it was worth it to play it and take a little bit more of your time.